Hi, welcome to Between Screenings. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about what myself and Tom have seen recently. And we're also going to talk about where all the indie hits have gone. There was a Variety article a couple of days ago, and we're going to throw our 2 pence into the ring on what the state of independent film is. Hey, Tom, how are you?
Very well, Neil. How are you?
I'm good. Although I have to apologize because you recommended a film for me for Halloween last time, and I wimped out and did not watch Bring Her Back. Instead, I did a double bill of House of Dynamite and went to the cinema to see Begonia. So,
I mean, I'm a fan of House of Dynamite, so I'm glad that you watched that. But I do think it's a little bit pathetic because you were giving it last time we spoke about how the girls are out the house. That's when I like to stick on a horror movie. Blah blah blah. I didn't we send you a link as well to it, so you could have
oh yeah, yeah.
and you chose to ignore that link and instead just sit and
I
watch Idris Elba as the president.
and I hadn't seen my brother in a while, so we arranged to go and see Begonia at the cinema.
That's a very cultured way to spend time with your brother. Did
Exactly.
he enjoy Begonia? In fact, did you enjoy Begonia?
So yeah, I did enjoy Begonia. I mean, if you're going expecting anything other than some Yorgos Lanthimos weirdness, then you'll be disappointed. I did feel it was probably one of the more predictable of his films, so I think you can kind of see the twists and turns coming fairly well. But I don't think that matters necessarily. I think it's still a fun payoff at the end. I think it is, as well as a lot of these sort of indie films that are coming out at the moment, I think it is very much a critique of our time and sort of hyper-capitalism and the way the world's going, which is good, but I think people or audiences are kind of getting a little bit tired of it, but especially as well, I think that's kind of getting rammed a little bit down people's throats. And I think people, because we're living in these times, I think people want a bit more escapism rather than films that remind them that everything's a bit shit at the minute and the rich people are just getting richer. I mean, you shared a lovely article on your Instagram the other day from the bastion of quality journalism called the Daily Telegraph, where they were saying we should all celebrate the fact that Elon Musk might become $1 trillion man. And I don't think anyone who's currently popping to a food bank is celebrating the fact that one man is going to be worth 1,000 million.
Well, like we've been promised trickle down economics for the last 40 years or so. Any day now, it's gonna get your umbrella out because it's gonna start drizzling on your head, and you will be a millionaire. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's gross. But let's not talk politics. I do agree. I think I certainly find myself drawn to stories at the moment that are a little bit more fantastical, a little bit more of an escape from the horrifying reality of the now. That
Yeah.
said, I enjoyed House of Dynamite a lot, even though it is possibly one of the most disturbing films I think I've seen this year.
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed House of Dynamite. I think especially the first act. I think whenever Rebecca Ferguson was on screen, she just stole the whole film. I think she was absolutely fantastic. I think by the time it got to the third act, I think I was a little bit weary of the narrative structure. So I think I was a little bit I didn't feel like I was learning a lot new. And there was some dodgy dialogue in the last act, which some of it I didn't mind. I mean, there's a particular line about podcasts that came up that I think a lot of people have thrown a little bit of shade on. So I think I was a little bit. I did really enjoy it, especially the first act. I think by the time it got to the third act, I was a little bit tired of it. But overall, I thought it was a great film, and I liked the way it ended. I liked the fact there was no massive resolution. I don't think you needed that. So I think it was really good at conveying that kind of fear and kind of terror that even the people in the decision-making roles don't really know what the hell to do in those situations because it's just unprecedented.
It's unprecedented and unthinkable. I would recommend a book called, I think it's Nuclear War: A Scenario, which is actually being made into a movie as well. And that film seems to, in my mind at least, draw a lot of influence from that, and it basically is this idea of this is such an unthinkable thing, and this system we've built is like full of these like weak links that rely just on humans in that moment deciding to do right. I thought the film did such a good job at capturing sort of like I mean, I work for an online website, and sometimes I get stressed about publishing stories about celebrity traitors. Like, I can't imagine what it's like when you're making decisions that could affect the lives of millions, with the simple push of a button. As I say, I really enjoyed it. I was at a Q&A with Catherine. It's Catherine Bigelow, yes.
Yep.
And she was saying that one of her when she signed on to make the movie, her first reaction was, "Here's the rules. We're never going to find out who fired the missile, and we're never going to find out what happens." And
Yep.
Netflix, being Netflix, and who could take those creative risks, were just like, "Yeah, absolutely, we can do that." Because I do think if it had been somewhere else, they might have been like, "No, you have to name them. It's Russia or North Korea." And I think
Yeah.
the entire point is, something I didn't even consider until long after the movie when a friend went to me, "Did you consider that it wasn't, no one had fired a nuclear missile? The reason why it didn't hit was because it was just space debris falling from the sky, and which was being misinterpreted by satellites." And I was like, I genuinely didn't." Fascinating movie. Again, well, not one I'm gonna revisit anytime soon for the sake of my blood pressure, but I really
Yep.
enjoyed it. And half the reason I'm talking so much about movies that are now 2 weeks old is because I saw absolutely bugger in the last week because I was in Scotland gallivanting for my wedding, which is a very first world problem, I know, but it did mean that I didn't get to watch anything beyond Celebrity Traitors on catch up and oh my word, what was the other thing? Oh, and Family Guy in a hotel room because it is the law in the UK that you have to watch Family Guy on ITV2 if you're ever in a hotel room. It's just on and you have to watch it.
I think when last time I was in a hotel room in the UK with my family, we managed to find Harry Potter on one of the ITV channels, which was, I don't know which Harry Potter it was, but it was a Harry Potter, and that served us quite well.
I would imagine it was Chamber of Secrets. Chamber of Secrets is the go-to because I think it's probably the cheapest because it's the one people like the least.
Right, there we go. It may well have been. Yeah, so yes, I saw Begonia, really enjoyed Begonia. Also, since we've last chatted, I went and saw The Mastermind, so the new Kelly Reichardt film with Josh O'Connor. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's a slow burn 70s heist film without quite being a heist film. So it's about him robbing an art gallery and then kind of what happens after. And he's kind of just a tunistic, lazy thief. So he's kind of a bit of a waster. He can't work out what to do with his life. So he thinks, I'll nick these paintings because he thinks it'll be easy. And it's kind of the explores what happens afterwards. It's a very slow burning film. So there are lots of scenes where we're literally just going with him while he's trying to the place where he's hiding the artwork. And it is very slow and very lets you sort of meditate on what's going on. So it's not a film for everybody. It's very much a sort of festival darling type film. It's not lighting up the box office or anything like that. It's not going to be a big crossover hit, but I really enjoyed it. I thought the central performance was fantastic. It's one worth checking out. But if you're not used to a kind of 70s, like the original Thomas Crown Affair types pacing, then it's probably not the sort of film for you. But if you like a slower film where you can just kind of sit in it and experience it, then I really, really enjoyed it.
I know for a fact I'm going to be watching this, partly because I really like Josh O'Connor and the stuff that he does, but more importantly because my fiance loves art heist movies. Like
Nice.
genuinely, they are her favorite genre of movie. So like American Animals from a few years ago, like she was so charmed by that film. And when we were in New York, we accidentally stumbled across the Big Book of Birds from that film. And she was like, "Oh my God, it's the book from American Animals." And I was like, "You are probably the only person to reference that film in maybe 10 years at this point." But no, it sounds really interesting. I think Josh O'Connor is like one of those performers who I'm shocked he hasn't gone and done something slightly more blockbustery. Because you would have thought after the success of Challengers, he could have just gone and done whatever he wants. But I think the last few things I've seen him in are, forgive me for butchering the name of it, La Chimera, is it?
La Chimera, yeah, brilliant, loved it.
Yeah, I mean, a fantastic film, and he's making interesting choices. For someone who a couple of years ago was in an was like the film of the year with Challengers. So yeah, I've no doubt I'll enjoy it. As I say, I will be taken to see it, or it will the moment it comes on streaming. My partner will be like, no, this is an art heist movie. We're watching it now. So I'm glad you liked it because it bodes well for me, Neil.
Yeah, no, enjoyed it. I think it's quite divisive. I know I was chatting to someone today, her boyfriend had been to see it and he really did not like it. I think for him, not enough happened and it was a bit too ponderous. But generally, I think if you're going in knowing what type of film it is, I think you'll be fine. And I don't think, from seeing the trailer, I don't think the trailer tries to sell it as something that it isn't. Because I think that's a danger with these sorts of films, that you try and jazz it up in the trailer and make it more exciting than it is. Interestingly, that sort of brings me on to one of the releases from this weekend, Die My Love, which I saw back in Cannes. I really enjoyed it. I might go and watch it again this week because I believe Lynn Ramsey's done a couple of little tweaks to the edit since Cannes. I saw the trailer when I was in the cinema for Begonia, and I was slightly shocked because I was like, this trailer is selling a completely different film to the one I saw. She can't have recut it that much. So the trailer kind of, I don't know if you've seen it, but the trailer kind of makes it out to be a psychological thriller / almost horror-ish type film. But it is not. It is
Oh, really?
it's a Lynn
No.
Ramsey film. It's really a meditation on a woman entering postpartum psychosis and the effect on people around her and on herself, and also then on her kind of coming out the other side of it. So it is not a psychological thriller. It's not Fatal Attraction. It's not got any sort of horror elements to it, really. Yet that's kind of what the trailer sells it as, a kind of mashup of those kind of films. So seeing the cinema scores coming out of the States when it just had its release, it didn't do big numbers at the box office. I don't think Mubi would have expected it to, but it got a D cinema score. So the audiences that went
Oh.
to see it did not like it. And I think, personally, I think that's because of the disconnect between what they were expecting from the trailer and what they then got when they got to the cinema. Now, maybe that doesn't matter because maybe, haha, we got you in the cinema anyway, so what does it matter? But it means word of mouth's going to be awful for it, so it's not going to hang
It
around. I
massively
think,
matters.
yeah,
It massively matters. Like, to use a lowbrow equivalent to this, you got Halloween Kills. No, sorry, Halloween Ends, because Halloween Ends presented itself as a climactic showdown between Michael Myers and Jamie Lee Curtis's character, and it just wasn't that. It was this far more, it like cut 5 years into the future, and it was more about like generational evil and how small towns can inflict scars on people through prejudice and this type of thing. And I found it really, really interesting. I'm a Halloween Ends defender, but I am possibly one of two people I know who like that movie. Because for the majority of people, the trailers said this is a big gory slasher and you're going to see Michael Myers finally kill Laurie Strode. And then that is the last 10 minutes of the film. It feels like at the end of it, they're like, oh shit, we need the bit we promised everyone. And word of mouth on that was equally dreadful because, like if the audience feel like they've been tricked into going to see something, then they're never going to like it. They're always going to feel like, even if the movie is brilliant and well made, you've still trick them into giving money for something they didn't necessarily want. And I think that's really risky, especially with how expensive the cinema is these days. That said, I do feel sorry for the filmmakers because, okay, I don't think people realize that directors don't have anything to do with the trailer. Like that's not always true. There will be auteurs out there who have demands for their trailers. Like I
Yep.
doubt Christopher Nolan is the type of person who lets a trailer go out without him seeing it first. But directors without that cachet, they are at the whims of the marketing team, and the marketing team go, right, how do we sell this? It's what genre is it? It's not really any genre. Well, we can make it look like a psychological horror, with the right music and the right framing, and then audiences pay for that, and then they're disappointed, and then it gets a bad cinema score, and this film dies in its ass, and everyone asks, well, why didn't this film perform? And it's like, well, because you sort of misrepresented what it was. Um,
Yeah.
so yes, my very lowbrow metaphor, but not metaphor, sorry, comparison. You got Halloween's Ends.
So I suppose pretty much every film I've seen since I last saw you was a film festival title, so a title that had come out of LFF. Other than, I very excitingly, and I can't give a review, it's not allowed, but I went with my daughters and my wife down to the big old London town yesterday for a BAFTA screening of Wicked for Good. So got to see that yesterday and had a nice Q&A with Cynthia Erivo, John M. Chu, and Ariana Grande, which was lovely. So it was very nice. I got lots of daddy points from my 12 and 14-year-old daughter taking them to that. And I'm allowed to say we very much enjoyed it. I think it's going to do very, very well. I don't think anyone will be disappointed.
I
If you know
expect
the stage show, you know what's coming. It's a bit darker than the first film, but I loved it.
kind of feel we don't want to talk too much about this because you can't. You have your arms tied up behind your back, and we'll probably both want to talk about when I've seen it because I get to see it tomorrow. I think I can say.
Yep.
I am excited but curious because I think the first act of Wicked is one of the best stage musicals I've ever seen. And I think the second act of Wicked is one of the dullest stage musicals I've ever seen. I couldn't tell you a single song. And whenever I say that, someone always goes, oh,
What
what
about
about
this
this
song?
one? And I'm like, see, I can't even name the example song that they would say because I just do not remember the second act. And my fear with this was because of how weak the second act is, that they were just going to do The Wizard of Oz, just do The Wizard of Oz sort of from Elphaba's point of view. And I have heard from the trades that that doesn't happen. I know you can neither confirm nor deny. So I am very happy that they haven't cast, there's no, I think Chu was saying that you're not going to see Dorothy beyond
No.
what you see her in the stage show, skipping down the yellow brick road and the back of her head at one point. But that's all it's going to be. We are not remaking The Wizard of Oz, which would be, cinematic terrorism, I think.
Yeah, I think you're not going to go near that. I wouldn't have thought. I would say that you're right. I think the songs are stronger in the first act. I think the first act's much more joyous of the stage play. I think everyone would agree with that. There was one song particularly in the film which actually got a round of applause in the cinema, which is nice. It's always a funny one when you go to a musical film in the cinema, because if you've been to the theatre a lot, you are very used to, after every song, giving a big round of applause. So it is
Yeah.
kind of always sometimes slightly odd because you get that big finish of the song the same way you do in the theatre, but obviously everyone's in the cinema, so everyone kind of is like, oh, do I clap? Do I clap now? And so one of the songs I think finished and I sort of did a clap and then no one joined me. But for another one of the songs, one of the big ones, everyone did applaud in the cinema, which was nice. So I always love being in a cinema that is packed. So the fun thing with the screenings, like the BAFTA screenings and the screenings you get invited to as well, the other like Critic Circle and other screenings they put on, is they're rammed full of cinephiles and they're full of people who behave themselves in the cinema, and everyone gets into it. So it was really lovely experience being there. Like I say, my kids will give me some brownie points for about 5 minutes and then I'll just be there annoying dad again. But for at least a moment, they were like, yeah, my dad's actually cool.
Are you generally pro or anti-clapping in the cinema?
I think if it's I think at that moment, I'm fine. After a song, give it a clap. I don't mind it.
I'm generally I'm clap agnostic. Like, there are moments when I've wanted to clap in cinema. I was the loser, like, literally cheering in the press screening when Cap picked up Thor's hammer and that type of stuff. Like, I think that can be really, really fun. However, the saddest clap experience of my life was during the Rise of Skywalker press screening when Kylo Ren pulled out a blue lightsaber and someone went, "Ooh," from no one. Literally no
No
one
one
in the
joined in.
audience started clapping with him. It was just the most pathetic thing you've ever seen in your life. So, yeah, I like it, like you said, I like it when people are having a good time in the theater, and I do enjoy it when people, like, there's some I think Brits especially, because I've been to American screenings where they'll
Oh yes,
cheer and clap anything,
they love it.
anything. I think we're a bit more reserved in this country, and it takes a lot to break through that sort of, like,
Yeah,
barrier of decorum that we have in the cinema. And so when it does, and a film really earns it, like I remember seeing Wicked when Defying Gravity came on, people genuinely were like, "Oh my god, like this is incredible!" And the moment it ended, the audience burst out clapping. So
yeah.
I think it has its moments, but I think
I think
maybe not. Maybe
my funny
not every cinematic moment deserves a clap.
no, my funniest experience of clapping moments in the cinema though was this year at Cannes. I went to see with Carl, head of program from Manchester. We went to a restoration screening of John Woo's Hard Boiled, uh,
Nice.
and after every mad bonkers action sequence where multiple people die, get shot in creative and bizarre ways. Have you seen the film?
Oh, a long, long time ago, one of those ones my dad showed me.
Yeah, classic Hong Kong crime drama where just the body count is off the charts and the deaths are like it's the sort of two guns sideways shooting and all this sort of crazy. Every single time there was a mad cat, and they are constant throughout the film. Every time the whole cinema would just erupt in applause after someone died in a mad way. And this is a film this is a film from the 80s. This is an old film, but people were loving it. It was great to be in that cinema and just see people just enjoying it so much. So yeah, I like a bit of clapping in this film. I think I have been. I remember when I was 19, my first time in a cinema in the United States watching a film. We'd got advance tickets because we were in LA at the time working during a summer at university, and we got advance screen tickets to go and see Scary Movie 2, that cinematic classic.
Oh, okay.
And I remember being in the cinema watching that, and there were people standing up and whooping, going, "Yeah, woo, woo!" like cheering and laughing. I was like, "What is going on? We're just watching a film here. Can you all sit down, please? This is mad." Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think Scary
I
Movie requires you to get overly excited and whoop in the cinema.
I could get on board with whooping and hollering for Scary Movie 2, considering I went to see Matthew McConaughey's Magnus Opus, whatever it is, Failure to Launch,
Oof,
with
classic.
which might be the worst rom-com ever made. Um, Baffling why I went to see it, because the other one, it was a choice between a Harrison Ford latter career action movie and that. I think it was Firewall, I think was the Harrison Ford movie. Anyway, unimportant. We went to see Failure to Launch, me and my friends, and bafflingly bad, like genuinely terrible. But the Americans in the audience having a grand old time, clapping, laughing. It's just they. It's. I'm actually a little jealous because it made me. I was like, am I just not getting it? Am I being a bit dim here? Because everyone else seems to be really enjoying it. So hats off to the Americans who can find joy in a cinema trip even when they're watching some absolute tripe.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that covers what we've watched recently. You've watched some telly that you didn't enjoy, so I don't think we need to hear about. I don't think we need to hear about yet another Robin Hood adventure, even if
So
Sean
it
Bean
was
is in it.
fine. Sean Bean was in it, and he's very good. It was Robin Hood by way of Game of Thrones, and it had its nice little moments. But for the most part, we did Robin Hood, with the little fox fella. Disney nailed it. No need to do
Yeah,
any more. Like,
I don't.
draw a line under it. We're done. Stop
Yeah,
making Spider-Man movies and stop making Robin Hood movies. We've done enough of them. We've cracked it.
yeah. I mean, for me, you don't go further than the fox, and you're not going to get a foxier maid Marian than
Completely
the
agree.
fox.
No, no, you're not. Sadly.
It's just the way it is. So let's talk a little bit about the state of independent film then, because this year's not been a banger in terms of independent films turning up at the box office. I've mentioned a couple that I've seen recently. So Begonia, I loved it. It's a great film, but it's not exciting general audiences. You've got something like The Smashing Machine, which we both thought was okay. It was fine, but it essentially tanked at the box office. It was a real big gamble from A24, 50 million, their most expensive film, and it's not going to do 100 million worldwide. You've got the A-lister that is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson leading in, and it's just not connected with audiences. You've got something like The Mastermind, which is great and is a cool little indie art house film, but again, it's not going to break out. I think the only thing that probably, in the UK at least, has definitely broken out and really captured the attention is I Swear, because that is still in cinemas. And it's still in cinemas doing like 4 or 5 showings a day in a lot of places. So that's running and running and running. And that shows what a good cinema score and what good word of mouth can do. Because I don't see adverts for that pretty much anywhere, but it is in cinemas.
Well, I haven't seen Begonia, and I'm only going to talk about the quality of the films that I have seen. But what I would say about I Swear is that it's fantastic. What I would say about The Smashing Machine is that it's 3 stories glued together and then rubber bands strapped around them to try and make it work. And I think like we can look at this and we can wonder what happened this year, what went wrong. Oh, let's really let's crack out the spreadsheets. We're doing all nighter, working out what's happening here. Just tell good stories. Like
Yeah.
that's all it needs to be. It's not hard at this point, and it's easy to say to start to think. Well, people just don't like independent movies. People don't like this. So this speaks to a wider trend. I I think really we all know what it is. Like the people have been switched off by stories that don't engage them. And, again, to talk about something like Begonia, which I haven't seen, so I won't talk about about the quality of the film. But what I will say is that you look at that type of film, you've got Yorgos Lanthimos is the director. He has a breakout hit with something like Poor Things a few years ago, and then everyone's throwing cash at him because he wins Oscars, and everyone's like, Yorgos, make us another one of those indie hits for us. And he can only ride the word of mouth wave for a limited amount of time. And sadly, while Begonia might be brilliant, Kind of Kindness just didn't appeal to people. And that was his last picture. He's made 3 movies in 3 years,
Yeah.
and that has an impact. So I don't think it's particularly difficult to see why something like Begonia didn't land. I don't think it's difficult to see why Smashing Machine didn't land. They're just not it, sadly. Like
No,
ultimately,
and there are other
whereas something
films
like
that
I Swear, God,
the other films that came out, it used to be a Sundance film, having that Sundance badge or having that Cannes badge would be enough to get people excited. But I just think I think that you've got to remember that went on great films. So something like Worst Person in the World came out of Cannes and people were excited about it because there was a lot of buzz around that film. Something like Love Lies Bleeding came out of Sundance and people were excited for it because it was a film with a very specific audience and really spoke to that audience. And we had people traveling from all over the country to come to the preview screenings we put on for that at Manchester Film Festival. We sold out 3 screenings of it and we had no talent attending, but people were desperate to go and see it. It was an event type film. And the story was great and it was a bit different and it was quirky and it had that very definite audience it was going after. I mean, it's interesting that the biggest independent film of this year has been The Materialist, which I thought was fine. It was essentially a rom-com,
I mean,
but it I was very disappointed at the end of it. I thought it could have done something more interesting with the end because it ended up following a very traditional rom-com trajectory. I liked the bits where it was speaking about modern dating and it was a bit more edgy, and then it just wrapped it up in a sort of nice bow at the end. And the performances in it were great, and I can see why it resonated. It did good numbers. It didn't do mad numbers, but that's, it got people out. It got people talking. It made a little bit of an event about it. And like you say, it was still a good story. You're not reinventing the wheel with a rom-com, really. So it didn't reinvent the wheel. It just brought it up to date and brought it into a modern dating scenario, which, having seen it, I am absolutely over the moon that I am not in the modern dating scenario, because it looks brutal.
Are you saying you couldn't compete with Captain America himself and Mr.
I
Fantastic
mean,
in the
I'm
modern
5 foot
dating world?
7, so I'm 5 foot 7, so I probably wouldn't even appear on most women's dating profiles according to that film.
You know, it is interesting. Like I think as well. If you look at the budgets of some of these films that have come up recently, I do think that is part of it. You mentioned, that this is the most expensive A24 movie ever made. Um, we were talking about this a few weeks ago with horror films and how the wheels have come off the Blumhouse model a little bit because they used to pump out movies for very, very little cash. I mean, sometimes we're talking budgets that wouldn't even break into the millions. Films with budgets that wouldn't even be the catering budget on a major blockbuster for a week. That's how small these things were. And you've just seen slowly but surely, the budgets have inflated, and then that means there's much less wiggle room in terms of what they can afford to lose when they if they don't take off at the box office. Because Poor Things was made for 35 million supposedly, not including the marketing budget, but Begonia was 45 to 55. And I
Yeah.
again haven't seen Begonia, but I know what Begonia's about, and I'm very curious where the budget will have gone on it.
Yeah, I can tell you
I
when you
know.
watch both films, Begonia does not feel like there's as much money on screen as Poor Things did.
Well, there you go. And, I think that's something you have to take into account. I think it's very easy. We know plenty of filmmakers who you offer them, they will make a movie for, 10 grand, they'll make a movie for 100 grand. But they're never going to say no to more money
No.
because it allows them to do more. But it's not always for the picture's benefit. Certainly not, I think, when you get to these multi-million dollar box office, budgets. Like, if this potentially had 20 million more put into it than Poor Things, and that would have been entirely off the back of, well, you've just you've just made a movie that was the talk of the Oscars, and it's not really a particularly smart business decision. I think that back in the day it would have been, but people don't really care about the awards as much as they once did. Like, it can have a massive, it can really, really promote a film that's come out, but I mean, I always use my dad as the example. Like, my dad will watch, like the Best Picture nominees, but
Yeah.
he's not gonna watch something like Poor Things and go, right, I've got to check out the next Yorgos movie, because that's just not the way the vast majority of people work anymore. Sadly, it's just they watch what other people tell them is good at the awards.
Yep. No, agree. I mean, I don't think the budget for something like Hamlet's been released, but obviously Chloe Zhao's new film, which is expected to be a massive Oscar contender, I'm really excited to see it. It'll be interesting to see how that does at the box office when that comes out. Because she obviously made Nomadland for about 5 million, and my guess is she's been given more like
Mm.
30 million for this one. So again, the expectation suddenly goes up, and what you have to achieve at the box office goes up. And it's a film that I don't I desperately would like to be proven wrong and it do really well at the box office, but it's an art house film about the making of Hamlet and Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway's loss of a child. It's meant to be a gut punch of a film and have everyone in tears, which I'm all for sitting in the cinema and being in floods of tears and an emotional wreck at the end of the film. But I don't think that's necessarily something that's going to drag audiences out. So, well, I really hope
So,
I'm proven wrong with that one. But yeah, I think, like you say, I think the story's the most important thing. I mean, when we go back to my teenage years, you had Quentin Tarantino churning out amazing independent films, and the Weinstein Company churning out amazing awards fodder and independent films. Now, we obviously don't like the man that was in charge of the films then, but they were sort of taking risks and going for story. I would say one of the films I'm now most excited about this year is The Whole Bloody Affair. I cannot wait to finally get to see The Whole Bloody Affair in cinemas. Tom, you look confused. How do you not know what The Whole Bloody Affair is?
This was past. I was going to say, I think this one's passed me by.
Later this year, we get Quentin Tarantino's official cut of Kill Bill as
my
one
God, yes.
film.
Yes, we do. That I am excited for. You should have, if you'd have called it Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair, I would have known what you were on about. But yes, I probably will go sit through that,
Oh,
I think I'll do The
100%.
Whole Bloody Affair just because. I don't think Em has seen Kill Bill 1 and 2 either. So it seems like the perfect opportunity to take her to the pictures and sit her. I mean, how long would it be? Close to 5 hours, presumably.
I think it's 200. I think it's 220 minutes. So 3 hours 40, which isn't that long by modern film standards. They weren't long films. So the two Kill Bill films were like hour and a half bangers. So.
I mean, I've made that clearly in my head. I remember them being much longer, but very excited for that. I'm sorry, just on Hamnet, I don't think I'm breaking any confidences when I say that obviously it was at LFF, and I know people who have seen it and said that it was absolutely amazing, like one of the best films they've seen this year. I think it might have the power to break through, and I only say that because I think Paul Mescal and Jesse Buckley, I just think it's got enough star power, which I'm going to guess is what the vast majority of whatever budget Chloe got for it, because I think it'll work simply, and this is me being super basic on this, but the poster that I'm looking at right now for it looks like the type of film that my sister would say, I want to go see that if she saw it, like while walking through the Trafford Centre or walking through some shopping centre. She'd be like, that looks good. That looks like a rom-com. Not a rom-com, sorry, a romantic movie. And she'd go and see it, and then she'd have her heart broken when she realizes it's about the death of William Shakespeare's son and the writing of Hamlet. But she'd probably have a good time at the pictures, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope it does well. It is one I am very excited about. And the other film that I think hopefully is going to kind of save A24's reputation for the year and hopefully drag us back up is the other Safdie brothers film, Marty Supreme. I'm very excited for. Obviously, I think the lead actor's fairly well known. I think some people like him. Timothy Chalamet, is it? I think
Timmy boy.
He'll do okay in dragging the audiences out, but it just looks like a great fun. Unless again, if the trailer's missold me on this one, I'm going to be angry because it kind of looks fun.
Listen, I think the trailer for this looks good. I think despite mocking him there, where I call him Timmy boy, like Timothy Chalamet, I think he's got a really engaging screen presence. I don't really like him in Dune. I think he's a bit in that, but I think he's got star power.
Yeah, I think independent filmmakers will carry on making interesting films, and I think independent filmmakers want to tell fun stories. I think studios and I think studios and funding bodies, public funding bodies, sometimes get a bit bogged down in sort of issue-driven films, and I don't think audiences care as much about issue-driven films as people want them to. I think people care about story. People care about a fun story. They don't want to be preached to in their films. I think this whole anti-woke thing's nonsense. I don't think people are bothered about that sort of thing. I think it depends how you do it within a film. I think you can have a message within your film as long as you're not ramming it down people's throats. As long as that's not all the film is about. I think you can have a message within your film that doesn't take over the whole film. As long as the film's, a bit of escapism that is something people are going to enjoy. And I think you do need to give people a reason not to just wait for it to come on streaming. There's a lot of talk about windows, whether the window needs to be brought back in and extend the window again. I don't know enough about that to decide, but I think again, you look at something like I Swear, and it runs and runs in cinemas. People aren't thinking, "Oh, I desperately need to see I Swear in the cinema because I don't want to wait for it on streaming." They're going to see it because people are talking about it and telling them, "Go and see this film." You've got to make, and that is purely because it's a great film. It is not because it's been made
Oh,
into an event. It's not because of anything else other than it tells a really good story. It's really emotional. It's funny. People come out of it and want to tell someone else about it and tell them to go and see it. So people aren't coming out and saying, "Oh, when this comes out on Netflix, make sure you see this." They're like, "Get to the cinema now and watch it." So I think the Windows thing is a way of hiding behind the film not being good enough to get people into cinemas.
I agree because for the longest, I mean, the updated window that we don't really talk about is that if a film is performing in cinemas, the wait for streaming is significantly longer. Like, when something does well, you think, "Oh, is that on Disney Plus now?" No, it's not. Like,
Yeah.
it took forever for Lilo and Stitch to make its way to Disney Plus because it made $1 billion.
Yeah.
So they weren't in a rush to put it in theaters. And maybe that's not the best example. Whereas, other things, the number of times I've turned on my telly and you get the what's new on streaming, and there'll be something that I was like, that was only in cinemas last week.
Yeah.
How is it already, $7.99 on Amazon Prime? And I do think that, like, you are right. I think that, good quality stories, like, they're what people want. They're not interested, again, like you said, they're not interested. Audiences aren't primarily interested in issue-driven content. Like, some of them are, but the vast majority of people aren't because they don't pay enough attention to the films they're going to see to know, that, oh, this, like, oh, this is an issues-driven movie. They just get in it and see, oh, this is about X or Y, and then it puts them off because it doesn't come across as a particularly nuanced or well-told story. Like, allegory and metaphor are powerful tools, and when you use those properly, you can tell and teach people lessons, in a really succinct way without them thinking, "I am being preached to here."
Yeah.
Like, look at something like Frankenstein that's out on Netflix now, #1 on Netflix. That's a film, about man's inhumanity to itself, basically, like, and its children. But it doesn't stop for a minute and tell you this is a film about child abuse. You can watch it and just be like, it's a monster movie, or it's a film about child abuse, or it's a film about the way we treat the down and outs in society. Like, there are interesting, but fundamentally, it's just a good story, well
Yeah.
told.
Yeah. Agreed. Good stories, well told, will always win out. So I think, I think I think we'll get there. I think we're coming out of the COVID writers' strike. More films are coming out now. There's definitely more films coming out between now and the Oscars that I'm excited about than there was last year. I think October was bad this year. I think it just happened to be bad. But I think we're going to get a couple of $1 billion movies this month probably. They're not going to be independent films, but you've got the classics of Zootopia 2 coming out, which could easily do $1 billion. And you've got another Avatar film coming out in December, which might do okay.
I was about to
And is on
say
my BAFTA
the
list of
other
ones I'm
day.
meant to watch.
Well, yes, so because the other day it hit my, like, the email started to hit my inbox of, "Daytime, did you know there's a new Avatar coming out?" And I was like, "Of course I do, because the Avatar movies are great, and I want this to make $2 billion at the cinema." I do wish James Cameron would make other things, of course, but I think the Avatar movies are overhated. That might be an
I
episode in December.
I am very, very excited if James Cameron stops Avatar movies and makes the film that he's optioned the book for. So he's optioned a book called The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, which I'm a massive fan of fantasy novels. And Joe Abercrombie is one of my favorite fantasy authors. And his new book, The Devils, is an absolute banger. And if James Cameron getting hold of that and turning that into a film, it is going to be amazing. So I hope he wraps up and passes Avatar to someone else to finish so he can get on with this one, because yeah, that I'm really, really excited for that. And I know I'm going to have to wait several years for it, but I think that's going to be a really, really good one. I think let's just wrap this episode up. So I will wrap it up with my little talk of what I've watched with my daughters, and you can maybe recommend me the next film to educate my children. So continuing their film education, we watched Forrest Gump this weekend, Tom.
Did they enjoy?
They did enjoy Forrest Gump. They did. They were like, oh, it was quite long. And I remember Forrest Gump being much longer than it was, because it's actually only 2 hours, 20 minutes, which back in the 90s was like the
Really?
longest film in the world. Yeah, not even
Oh,
3 hours.
I showed Emily Forrest Gump during the pandemic and was bitterly disappointed to find out she didn't enjoy Forrest Gump.
That's
And
mad.
that led me down this whole like rabbit's warren where I found out that Forrest Gump is a divisive film. I think it's great. I'm glad your daughters liked it, Neil.
Oh, no, they enjoyed it. Yeah, they enjoyed it. I mean, I think it wasn't, I don't think it was as exciting for them as I kind of thought it was going to be. But we enjoyed it. I enjoyed it on a watch, having not seen it for a long, long time.
Well, when you mentioned like Forrest Gump, it did make me think of the films that I would watch in semi-rotation in the 90s. And my immediate thought was Air Force One, which was just a film my dad used to just show me every time I was like getting a little bit naughty. He'd be like, just stick Air Force One on, because that's a picture. Like, don't know if you want to show it to your little girls, but equally, it might be nice to see a president kick some ass.
Yeah, I think it's a safe one. I tell you what, I showed them. I was excited for them to watch one of my favorite films from the 90s, which was Jim Carrey's The Mask, which I loved when I was a teenager. And we watched it, and I was horrified because it has not aged well. Have you
No,
seen it
no,
recently?
I've seen them. I've seen The Mask multiple times. I'm never going to go back and rewatch it because I made the mistake of going back to watch Ace Ventura, which is just massively transphobic. Like the final act is one huge transphobic gag, and you watch it now, and you are like, I remember being in the school playground and doing doing the like that like with the bit when he's washing his tongue, and I look back on it now with like just horror and embarrassment.
Well,
What were we thinking in the 90s?
The Mask, Cameron Diaz's character in The Mask is treated horrifically. She is purely eye candy, there for the use of men. Like The Mask pretty much sexually assaults her in the film for a gag. Like you're watching it and you're
Yeah,
going, oh, this is not good. This isn't funny. Like, and I love Jim
it
Carrey, and I think Jim Carrey has come out and defended women. I think he defended Cameron Diaz when creepy Chris Isaac tried to kiss her at the MTV Awards, and he's, I think, genuinely a kind of nice guy. But the film, not aged well. Though things that were cool in the 90s haven't necessarily carried on being cool.
I want this to be a feature moving forward. It was acceptable in the 90s, where
Yeah.
we look back on 90s movies and say,
Oh, there are
you can't
plenty.
do that. I am now.
I like it.
I am remembering now. I am remembering when the mask pulls a condom out of his pocket and goes like, "How did that get there?" And I never got that as a kid, like because you just think it's a funny
Yeah.
balloon, and yeah, I could see why you watching it. Did they at least like the Cuban Pete dance?
There were bits they liked. There were bits they enjoyed. I think the problem was I was just squirming at it so much because I was like, "This isn't the film. I don't want my daughters to think that this is how women should be treated." When like watching Cameron Diaz, it was really an awkward watch. Like not fun for me watching that.
And this is why you should watch more horror movies, because they were transgressive for their time and now seem tame. So you watch
Yeah.
something like Exorcist and you go,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, watch that girl doing with that crucifix," and now you watch it and you go, how's this an 18? I don't even understand.
Okay. So hopefully we didn't waffle on too much. So I think the long and short of today's pod is that we're all excited for independent films that are coming out. Independent film is not dead. Yes, there have been lots of independent films that have come out at the box office this year that have slightly underperformed, but I think there are other films like Sinners and Weapons, which felt like independent films but just happened to be released by a major studio, that have gone way above what we would have expected of them. So I'm not worried about where the state of film is in that regard. I don't think Tom is either. I think we just want to see great films and great stories, and we will keep telling you what films are coming up that are great films and great stories for you to go and watch, and we'll keep just waffling on general nonsense. So come back to us next time we're between screenings, and you can catch us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next week, until after the next screening, bye.
Bye bye.